January 1st, 2018, Project 66R. Picking up where I left off about 1 year ago. I spent most of the morning adjusting the door, adjusting the fender, playing with the hood a little bit. And basically, after looking at my old photos of when I took it apart, I'm right back pretty much to where I was. It's tight here, just like it was when I took it apart. I do need to add some more shims in here to pull this fender out. I'm just about one washer too far out. The rocker fits pretty decent. I got my normal wide gap at the top here. They all seem to have a little wider gap at the top on the hard tops. I don't really plan on changing that. But this fender needs to go back. And when I do, to get this gap correct, it's going to be touching here just like it did when I took it apart. So, I wasn't planning on making any cuts, but I just can't get it to fit the way I need it to fit. So I'm going to have to do a little trimming on that door a little bit. I'm not going to get crazy. I just want to get it so it's not touching. And then, other than that, everything, the hood seems to fit fairly decent. And I got the same kind of situation here, except the opposite. I have to add material to the door. Because I got a really nice fit here. Rocker. I got a nice fit here. A little wider at the top, just like they all are. Not concerned about it. But I will have to add just a little bit of material here. Which is not, it's easier to add it than to cut it off. I can just weld a bead on the edge there and sand her down. So we're getting close. I've spent most of the morning trying to adjust it so that I would not have to make any cutting or welding. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was probably going to happen because it really fit poorly when I took it apart. And it had all the original panels on it. There was no evidence of any major damage. So the fun begins. Well, I made a couple more adjustments. I adjusted this door back slightly to improve that top gap there. I'm just about paint stick there, and that's the way it is on the other side. A little wider at the top, not concerned about that. I did do some cutting here. I cut this back considerable. I got a huge gap, but I had to cut that back because it was touching there originally. Of course, I cut through the metal, so I'm going to have to take the door off and weld those two small thin pieces back together and grind it back down. Discovered one other issue, and that comes from installing the rocker panel here. As you can see, my rocker panel extends considerably farther past the door. So I really can't bring my fender back now the way it needs to be because I welded that. I can't remember which side I did. One side the body shop did, one side I did. Can't remember which one. Anyway, make a long story short, the fender has to come off anyway because I got to add a spacer here and a spacer here on those inner bolts because it's slightly, and I think if I looked at my old photos, I did not put two shims in, I just put one in. So I'm going to go back to the two shims. So the next step is pull the fender off. We're going to cut all this out so it's a little closer to being flush with the door. Not perfectly flush, but a little closer so I can get that fender back. Okay, I made my cut. I've cut my spot welds, sort of. Got a ways to go to get that off of there, but well, I tried to save it. I gave up on that and just cut it out of there. But I cut it back. And all I needed was like 1/8 of an inch. So now I'm gonna, before I even fabricate a part for this, I'm gonna put the fender back on and see if I can adjust it. So I make, before I start welding, because I may have other welding to do. So I cut that out of there and trimmed it up a little bit, and I'll just remake that end, which I've had to do before. But anyway, we're going backwards a couple steps, but sometimes you got to do that to move forward. Well, I got quite a bit done today. Working on the fender, the hood. My gaps are looking a lot better. Had a real problem with the back of the hood. I had used those new rubbers, which I believe are for the front lip of the hood, and they were just too tall. It actually shifted my hood that way for some reason. I ended up putting the old ones back in that were kind of squished, and it looks pretty good. So I did some trimming here. I got this fender pushed out a little bit. I got the gaps back there looking pretty good. I'm done for the day. The next time I'll be out here, I'll probably pull that fender off. I'll be making a template for that rocker brace, and I'll probably be welding up that door. Not too bad for the first day of the new year.